So, Babygirl is out this week.
Okay, so controversial erotic drama written and directed by Dutch actor turned filmmaker Helena Rain, who made the that kind of very dyspeptic horror comedy Bodies, 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 which was a film I really liked, although it was full of characters I absolutely hated, which is a very smart move. So, Nicole Kidman, who in connection with this starred in Stanley Kubrick's erotic thriller Eyes Wide Shut, is Romy. She's a CEO of a tech company, and she's married to theatre director Jacob, played by Antonio Banderas. In an early scene, we see them making love, apparently enthusiastically. But the minute it's over, she scurries off into a private room to watch porn on a laptop, which is something that she needs to complete this process. And there is a sense of desperation and shame in the scene. This is something that she craves, that she's not getting from her husband, but that also mortifies her. Walking to work, she sees a young man played by Harris Dickinson, who came on the show and is a brilliant actor, calming a dog which is running loose in the street and is attacking people. But he somehow calms the dog down and gets it back to its owner. Later, that same young man, Samuel, turns up in her office as an intern, and there is something about him that gets under her skin. Here's a clip.
Hey, how'd you get that dog to calm down?
I gave it a cookie.
You always have cookies on you?
Yeah. Why, do you want one?
No.
You shouldn't drink coffee after lunch. How many do you drink a day?
None of your business. 7. Yeah.
So it's a very low-key scene, but there's a lot going on in it. So firstly, he says he calmed the dog down because he had a cookie. And then he asks her if she wants one, which is a strange question. He then starts impertinently telling her about not having coffee after lunch. And he says, how many coffees you had? And she says, none of your business. 7. So she said, I'm not telling you. And then she immediately tells him. So what becomes apparent, if it hadn't already, is that on some level, she wants him, she wants to be dominated. And it also gradually becomes clear that he has got a knack for knowing what people want and becoming that thing. And they then embark on a relationship which is built around her desire for subjugation and his ability, perhaps, to give her that thing that she wants, that thing that sent her scurrying off to the pornography earlier on. Now, the director has credited Paul Verhoeven's Basic Instinct and Adrian Lyne's Indecent Proposal as influential, although I would say that 9.5 Weeks is the thing that casts the longest shadow. I know that 9.5 Weeks is it's incredibly flawed. I mean, it was a big sort of sensation in the cinemas, but it's not a great film at all. But that film was a very watered down adaptation of a pseudonymously written memoir about a relationship between a gallery owner and a Wall Street financier. And in the book, it's an abusive S&M relationship that basically causes the lead character to have a nervous breakdown, and literally their life falls apart. And in the film adaptation, there is a scene in which the character played by Kim Basinger has become so subjugated to the character played by Mickey Rourke that she agrees to a suicide pact. She agrees to take pills that she thinks are going to kill them, and they aren't. They're just nothing. And when they preview screened the film, they took that scene out because the audience reacted so badly to it. They just thought, okay, people aren't going to, they just can't do this. And of course, that ripped whatever heart that film may have had. But there's a key line in 9.5 Weeks when Basinger's character says to Mickey Rourke, how did you know I'd respond to you the way I did? And he says, because when I looked at you, I saw myself. Now, this is a very, very different scenario because it's Kidman's character who has the power. And Samuel isn't seeing himself in her. He appears to be seeing her because with everyone that he meets, he sort of seems to see what it is that they need or see what it is that they want, and then somehow make himself into the person that delivers that. Now, it is very important to remember, firstly, in any S&M relationship, the power dynamic is not what it might appear from the outside. The submissive partner is generally is the author of the scene. So power structures within S&M. And I know that here in Britain, we just smirk about all this kind of stuff, but one has to understand that is hardwired into S&M. And this addresses that directly, because Samuel, the character played by Harris Dickinson, literally says to it, look, you have to say it. You have to say that you want this before it's okay. Now, that isn't to say that the issue isn't fraught. And I know a couple of people who have been outraged by the idea that this is a film in which a successful woman wants to be humiliated by this sort of, upstart intern. I also know people who think the film is just silly, which honestly is a kind of standard response to any film dealing with sex and desire, is just to go, because that is what we tend to do. The truth is, I think that whether you think it works or not, I think it is a seriously intentioned drama with a kind of, a satirical edge to it about hidden desires and about the destructive power that they can hold, but also about the reality of them. It's a female sexual quest narrative, and it's worth noting that next week we have a new version of Emmanuel starring Noémie Merlan and directed by Olivier Duran, that is meant to be a feminist reworking of Emmanuel, which of course it was originally based on a pseudonymously written novel and was then, turned into a famous softcore 70s porn film, was a 70s softcore film by Just Chacun. There's a great score by Cristobal Tapia de Villa, of whom I've long been a fan, for Babygirl. Kidman's performance, I think, is brave. It's brave in a number of ways, not least because it's the way in which she's mocked by her family for the way she looks is kind of weirdly self-referential. Harris Dickinson is just terrific. He's terrific in everything. I've never seen him put a foot wrong. It was interesting when he came onto the show, he talked about how meticulous he is about detail and how the way in which the nuances of performance are really something that he studies really thoroughly. So look, it's not perfect, and it's certainly not for everyone. And I know people who have really disliked Babygirl, but I think we have a habit of just dismissively smirking at any film that's trying to take this kind of thing seriously. And I thought although in the end it didn't fully work for me. One of the other things, if people say, oh, well, it's not sexy, it's not meant to be sexy. It's meant to be a psychological drama that is about sex as opposed to a sexy film, So I thought it was a bold statement. I think from Nicole Kidman's point of view, it's a fairly brave role to have taken on. And she is, of course, the very best thing about Eyes Wide Shut, which is Stanley Kubrick's worst movie.
I thought your use of the phrase early on in that review, to finish the process, was nuanced and inspiring.
Thank you, Simon.
Just that I'd mention that.